Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Elmo and this is Elmo's Ethics. Happy New Year, happy new decade. Today I wanted to share with you a bit about my personal journey and development over the last couple of years and talk to you about something called Veganuary. This time of year, 3 years ago, is when I first became vegan, and Veganuary sort of helped push me over the edge into changing my habits and my behaviour on something that I'd been contemplating for a while. So it's a great time to start that journey and ask more questions about it if that's something you're interested in. First and foremost, I would say that I'm an environmentalist, and when I started studying environmental issues, veganism kept on coming up, and the conversations that I was having with friends and colleagues and the information I was learning about kept on being related back to a vegan diet and the impact that has on the environment. And another example of that is just quite a few prominent environmental activists also follow a vegan diet. So whether that's Greta Thunberg or Leonardo DiCaprio or Chris Packham, there's a number of examples of prominent environmental activists that also advocate for a vegan diet. And when I was starting to get interested in that, I started to cut down my own consumption of animal products and started to question my own behaviour and started to change my habits. Veganuary was a really useful tool in sort of taking that leap and making the next step. And that was 3 years ago this month, and I've not really looked back. It's one of the best decisions that I've ever made. Which brings me on to some of the main pillars of veganism. That's environmental issues like myself, because veganism compared to a normal meat diet or even a vegetarian diet reduces the amount of emissions you generate in your carbon footprint. The second pillar being animal welfare and ethical issues, and the third being health issues and living a healthier lifestyle and reducing your chance of getting a number of illnesses and diseases, which I'll go on to a little bit later. So those are the main 3 pillars of veganism, I would say, and they're the main reasons people get into veganism in the first place. But what I've also found is that although there might be one primary reason you start being interested in veganism to begin with, the longer they're vegan, the more they learn about the other pillars, and the more that becomes an issue for them as well. So although I primarily became vegan for environmental reasons, I now consider the animal rights, animal welfare and ethics issue also very important, and the health side of it and health benefits potentially for vegans are something that I just consider a bonus to me personally. So I would consider myself an ethical vegan, and the reason I would describe myself that and why I would label myself that is that not only do I not eat animal products, so meat, dairy, fish, but I also, as much as possible, try not to buy any animal products or consume any products that have animal harm in the process. So that means not buying leather, not buying products that are tested on animals, and as far as possible not contributing to that sort of industry and that level of pain and suffering that's involved in those industries and practices. Now that may sound difficult to some, and I want to reiterate that it's not always easy, and I'm not claiming to be perfect. So I have bought leather things in the past before I started this journey. I wouldn't do so now, and occasionally vegans have slip-ups. The idea is not to be perfect and not to criticise people for having slip-ups, but just to move towards a lifestyle that doesn't inflict pain as much as possible and doesn't contribute to the worsening of the environment. So the fishing industry will do things such as bycatch, which is a technical term for when they are, for example, fishing for tuna, but they'll catch a shark or a turtle and they'll throw it back dead because it was caught in the net, even though that wasn't their intended aim to catch those. Those sorts of practices and things go on quite often, and that's the sort of thing that I try to alleviate from my lifestyle and not contribute towards. So just to give you a few examples of that without being too graphic or too much detail, you can look up those things or do your own research if you want to. From an animal welfare point of view and the sort of ethics behind not wanting to harm animals if you don't have to, and don't want to support industries that harm and kill animals and torture them whilst they're alive, if that's unnecessary. And the sort of caveat to that is, if you can live a healthy life without consuming that, then surely not contributing to that pain and suffering is better. But the other aspect and the third pillar that I wanted to go on to talk about is in regards to health issues. In quite a lot of cases, if you eat a balanced diet, then a vegan diet is more healthy than the alternative. The reason I say that it's quite often more healthy than the alternative comes from some of the studies and documentaries that I've watched in the course of this sort of development journey. And the main one relates to something called the China study, which is one of the biggest studies in medical history and referenced in several documentaries, but also you can just go look up the study itself. So just to give you some examples of that, the biggest thing that kills people is nearly always heart disease, which has been proven to reduce if you follow a vegan diet, but the same goes for various types of cancer. Just off the top of my head, there's been links to reduction in likelihood of getting breast cancer, but also prostate cancer, which is the most prominent in men. It also reduces your chance of getting stroke and diabetes and a number of other illnesses. So for me, it's important to try and be a better person and to try and help society or be positive in terms of making a positive impact on the world and your communities. And veganism helps me with that, and I feel like I'm contributing positively and lowering my impact. And one example of that is there's a little calculator online which is resourced from one of the vegan documentaries that I'll point to at the end. And so if you just have a little look at this, and you can do it yourself if you start this journey, that shows you your breakdown of how much resources you've saved as a vegan rather than as a meat eater. That's about 1,000 animals that I won't have eaten, and various amounts of forest space and CO2 as well. So you can have a look at me for doing it for 3 years, and that's sort of a nice indicator of what resources you've saved. But you can also do that for yourself. For instance, if you decide to take up Veganuary and do a month of eating a vegan diet, then you can calculate that as well. And if you look at this, then you would have saved around 30 animals and various other emissions, which is a net positive. So leading on from that, the documentaries that I would recommend are, as I've mentioned, Cowspiracy. That was one of the first documentaries that got me into this area of interest and knowledge. That mainly focuses on environmental issues and the environmental impact of changing your diet. A Fork Over Knives, which focuses on health and dietary issues in relation to health. Earthlings, which is one of the first significant animal agriculture documentaries in terms of animal welfare. So they were some of the first documentaries that I watched that really had an impact on me, but that was a few years ago, and there's been a number of more recent developments. What the Health, which is on Netflix, Dominion, which is about animal welfare and ethics, and Game Changers, which is recently come out, which specifically focuses on health issues relating to athletics and sort of endurance, which has got lots of useful information in as well. The reason that I'm talking about documentaries is because they're one of the best ways I find personally that I learn. I'm a sort of visual learner, so that I don't want you to just take what I'm saying as verbatim. I want you to go away and do your own research, and one of the ways of doing that is to watch documentaries. Lots of people I've met since then have been really encouraging and inspiring people, and have cemented for me that Activism is really important, and focusing on environmental and ethical issues is central to my beliefs and my ethics. So why am I talking about this now, and why am I doing this video now? That is because Veganuary is happening again this month, and it's a really good way to get into vegan issues and to ask questions and to try new food. But also there's people offering recipes, there's supermarkets offering more vegan products, and there's restaurants sort of offering deals on vegan foods. So it's cheaper and easier to try vegan food and sort of experiment with it for yourself. But also it was one of the instrumental things in pushing me into a lifestyle and a way of living that I feel has massively benefited my life. So that's sort of veganism in a nutshell from my point of view, and a little bit about my journey with it. And I just wanted to end by saying that it's never been easier to be vegan. There's never been more options or more information about it. So thanks for letting me ramble on about something that I feel very strongly about and think is important. And I hope you watch some of those documentaries. Thanks for watching my video. I'm Elmo, this is Elmo's Ethics, and if you like the content, there'll be more videos on a variety of subjects, not just veganism, not just politics. And if that's the sort of content you want to see, then feel free to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again sometime soon.